Hey guys, in this video we're going to be checking out the CrazyBee F3 FR. This is a all-in-one board for your brushless tiny whoops, and it's made by Racerstar. I thought this was actually very similar to the Omnibus F3 all-in-one board that I reviewed a few weeks ago. This one also is called the B-Core Omnibus, and it's also for your brushless tiny whoops. I built a brushless tiny whoop a while back based on this board, this pink one here, and I put cards to all the videos I reference in the corner here, so just click on those cards and you'll see the videos for this other interesting stuff here. But I built this based on this board, and it has, F3 flight controller, Omnibus F3 target, it's got the Betaflight OSD, it's got a 4-in-1 ESC built in, BLAS, 5 amps, I believe, bursting up to 6 amps, but no receiver in this one. And so when I built this, I had to solder on a receiver. You see there's a receiver board underneath this board here, and that does add a little bit of weight. So then when I noticed this new board that came out from Racerstar, it's called the CrazyBee, this had the receiver built into the board. So that's pretty nice. It's probably the same board, just lighter, because there's no soldering of the receiver. It's actually quite a bit different. Of course, yes, it is lighter because you don't have to solder on a receiver. It does come in two versions. This one here is the FreeSky version, and then there's another one for has a built-in FlySky receiver. So obviously this one's called the CrazyBee F3 FR for FreeSky, and the FlySky version is called the CrazyBee FR FS for FlySky. They both, whether you get the FreeSky or the FlySky version, apparently these are telemetry receivers, so they will send telemetry back to your radio, whether you have a Taranis or a FlySky i6. And so, very different from the previous generation of the board that came out only maybe about a month prior to this new one. So it's kind of interesting, the pace of change and evolvement that things are going right now in the hobby. Pretty crazy. So as I mentioned, while it does have all of the sort of same kind of features, it's got an F3 flight controller, does have a Betaflight OSD, has the same gyro, the MPU 6000. However, the way things are set up here are completely different. It doesn't use the Omnibus F3 target for the firmware. It has its own firmware for this board and also one for the FlySky version, so they're two completely different firmwares. It comes with 3.3.0, I believe, on here. But you probably want to upgrade to 3.3.1, and any of the older versions of Betaflight are not compatible with this board because there's no firmware for this board previous to version 3.3. The receiver on both versions is not connected via a UART. It's connected via the SPI bus, just like the Betaflight OSD is. So there's no UART for the receiver at all, and obviously no soldering. So the setup is actually really super simple now. In the FreeSky version, you can select two different modes. You can select either D16 mode, in which case you'll select the FrSky X for the receiver, or you can select D8 mode, which will be FrSky _D, I believe, and that will give you 8 channels. I believe the X will give you up to 16 channels. So there's two different ways that you can set up the receiver and do your binding. The binding is also a little bit different as well. You give it power first. So normally you'd hold the bind button down and then power it, but in this case you don't hold the bind button down. You power it up. You can do it by USB. The white light and red lights in the bottom will start flashing, and then you hold the bind button down for 2 seconds. They'll turn solid. The lights will turn solid, and then you're in bind mode. Then you go to your Taranis or whatever radio you're using and hit the bind button, and it will go ahead and bind it. So that's a little bit different binding procedure. All this stuff is actually all outlined in the manual as well, which you can get from the product page, so it's pretty easy to follow. Some of the solder points on this board are super tiny. The battery leads are right here on the bottom, so your ground and your positive. It does come with a variety of different leads you could use, either micro-loci, JC 1.25, or the PH 2.0 connectors, so you get all three if you want. And then you also have the rubber mounting for vibration isolation along with the screws. These these things didn't come with the previous board, the Omnibus B Core one, so keep that in mind. This is probably a better deal. I think this is like $32, and the previous version, this one I think was like 24. And if you consider that a like an XM receiver costs about $10, that's probably what the additional cost is. Actually, the combination of those two is going to be more than this one, so this is probably a better deal. Plus, you get all the extra goodies that you're going to need that the other board doesn't come with. Now, some of the other solder pads are super tiny here, like right there are the pads for the buzzer. I'm not sure if that's even worth trying to do. These are so tiny. On the bottom here, more normal sized pads here for your camera. You got your 5 volts and ground and your video in and video out for these right here. That shouldn't be too terribly difficult, and that's actually in a good spot. Now the voltage regulator, the 5 volt voltage regulator right here, only goes up to 0.8 amps, so it says that you're limited to a 25 milliwatt video transmitter, so keep that in mind. You're not going to be able to go anything like 200 milliwatts or anything higher. It's going to draw too much power. Now it also says that this has a current sensor on here, and I think that's this little shunt right there, a little tiny thing. And I believe it's only up to 14 amps in terms of showing you what kind of current draw you have on your motors, but that's kind of nice. Now with this board kind of being different, it does have Betaflight BLHeli pass-through, so you can flash the 4-in-1 EC if you want to. It does come with 16.6, but if you want to go to 16.7, I would look at the manual and follow the procedure. You have to do some, it's a little bit different than the normal way of flashing the ESCs, but if you want to do that, I would recommend referencing the manual. The instructions are in the manual. Now, one thing that this board has here are the plugs for the motors already soldered on, whereas the other board had the plugs but they weren't soldered on. Now, I think that it's fine that they have plugs here, but these are actually a different size than the plugs for the Bolt Clash motors. So I was thinking, oh, I could use the Bolt Clash motors on this. However, that's not the case, because the Bolt Clash motors use a 3-pin plug of the 1mm pitch, and this is a 3-pin plug of the 1.25mm pitch. So as far as I know, there aren't any motors that have this plug currently for sale, so you would have to source some motors and solder them onto a plug and then plug them in here, or you could desolder these plugs and then solder directly to the pads if you want, although I think that probably would be fairly challenging as well. I would just leave the plugs in and then, or leave these connectors in and then solder on plugs onto some motors that you particularly want. I'm not really sure what I would be building for this, probably a 75mm one with like an 07-03 motor. However, I'm probably not going to be building this because I have the Snappy something, I forget what it's called. I'll put a picture up here what it looks like. It has this board already built in along with the 07-03 motors, I think 15,000 kV. It's in a 75mm frame. That one is on its way, and so I'll be able to show you what the performance of this board is like in a pre-built models. But if you want to use this board to upgrade a model you already have, this would be a pretty good upgrade, especially if you don't have the Betaflight OSD, or if you want to lighten it up with a built-in receiver, for example. This would be a board definitely worth checking out. Anyway, guys, that's going to do for this video. Be on the lookout for that Snappy model tiny whip, brushless tiny whip video. I'm going to have that at some point in the near future, and that'll be featuring this board if you want to check out the performance of this board. Anyway, hope you find this video helpful. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.